She spent more mornings on live national television than almost anyone in American history. No script, no safety net, no editing bay to fix a bad take. Just her, a co-host, and a camera that never stops rolling every single weekday for decades. For over 2 decades, Kelly Ripa has done something that almost no one in television actually survives. She has stayed relevant, stayed likable, and stayed live year after year through cast changes, network shakeups, format overhauls, and an industry that famously chews people up and replaces them without a second thought. So how did a girl from a working-class New Jersey town end up as one of the most enduring faces in daytime television? And what has it actually taken, behind the scenes, to hold onto that chair for 35 years? That's the story we're telling today. Kelly Maria Ripa was born on October 2, 1970, in Stratford, New Jersey, a small, unremarkable town outside Philadelphia made up mostly of quiet, blue-collar neighborhoods, the kind of place nobody expects a future television icon to come from. Her father, Joseph Ripa, was a union leader who later became a New Jersey state legislator, someone who understood the value of showing up and doing the work every day, no excuses. Her mother, Esther, worked at Bell Atlantic, holding down a steady job in an era when that kind of stability meant everything to a family. It was a modest, tight-knit Italian-American household, the kind that instills a relentless work ethic early and doesn't tolerate shortcuts. From a young age, Ripa gravitated toward performing. She threw herself into local theater productions, chasing a dream of working on screen that must have felt impossibly distant for a teenager from Stratford with no industry connections, no famous last name, and no map for how to actually get there. She briefly enrolled at Camden County College before making the leap that so many aspiring performers make and so few actually survive. She left the safety of a traditional education path to chase acting full-time, trading a guaranteed future for years of uncertain auditions, rejection, and financial insecurity. It's a familiar setup in showbiz biographies, the small-town kid chasing a big dream against long odds, but what sets Ripa's version apart is what came next. She didn't get discovered overnight. She didn't get handed anything. She earned her way in through years of grinding in an industry that, by every reasonable measure, wasn't looking for her. In 1990, at just 19 years old, Ripa landed the role that would launch her entire career, Haley Vaughn on ABC's long-running soap opera All My Children. Soap operas in that era were an unforgiving training ground. Actors were expected to memorize and film enormous volumes of material on brutally tight schedules, often shooting an entire episode's worth of scenes in a single day, with almost no room for error and even less room for rest. It was the kind of environment that either breaks performers or forges them into something durable. Ripa stayed with the show for over a decade, and over that time, Haley Vaughn became one of the most beloved characters in the show's long history, a role that gave Ripa a devoted audience years before most people outside daytime television had ever heard her name. But daytime drama was never going to be the ceiling for her. It turned out to be the foundation for something much bigger. In 2000, Longtime Live. With Regis and Kathy Lee co-host Kathy Lee Gifford announced she was leaving the show, and that departure set off one of the most public and closely watched replacement searches in daytime television at the time. Dozens of names were floated in the press. Ripa was not the obvious frontrunner. She was still primarily known as a soap opera actress, not as a live television personality, and live TV is an entirely different discipline. But her guest hosting appearances on the show stood out enough that in 2001, she was officially brought on as Regis Philbin's new co-host, and the program was renamed Live. With Regis and Kelly. This is where the real test began, because soap opera acting, however demanding, is still performance built around a script. Live morning television has no script. It's unpredictable, unscripted, and happening in real time in front of millions of people, which means there is no safety net if something goes wrong. Ripa had to learn an entirely new skill set on the fly: quick wit, natural on-air chemistry, the ability to recover instantly and gracefully from anything that went sideways during a broadcast, and she had to learn all of it in full public view, with no do-overs and no room to hide a bad day. She passed that test, morning after morning. For the next 25 years, Ripa's partnership with Regis Philbin became one of the defining duos in the history of daytime television, a chemistry that carried the show all the way until Philbin's retirement in 2011. She then co-hosted with former NFL star Michael Strahan starting in 2012, and later with Ryan Seacrest beginning in 2017, which meant 3 completely different on-air dynamics and 3 completely different eras of the show, and through every single one of those transitions, Ripa was the constant, the one face viewers could always count on being there. In 2023, the show entered arguably its most personal chapter yet, when Ripa's real-life husband, actor Mark Consuelos, joined her as full-time co-host, and the program was rebranded Live with Kelly and Mark. The two had actually met on the set of All My Children back in the early 1990s and married in 1996, and bringing that 3-decade marriage onto live television every single day added a layer of authenticity and unpredictability the show had never had before. Beyond the anchor desk, Ripa steadily built out a much broader media career. She executive produced multiple projects, hosted the ABC game show Generation Gap, and in 2022 published a best-selling memoir titled Live Wire, Long-Winded Short Stories, which she supported with a full national book tour, sharing stories about her marriage, her family, and the realities of building a career in an industry that doesn't always make room for people like her. In February 2026, the show marked a genuinely rare milestone, Ripa's 25th anniversary in the host chair, celebrated with a dedicated anniversary episode that served as a highlight reel of just how many major names had passed through her desk over a quarter-century, a milestone that almost no one in the history of daytime television has managed to reach. Number 25-year run happens without turbulence, and Ripa has been notably candid about hers rather than letting speculation fill in the gaps. She's spoken publicly about the real physical toll that daily live television takes on a person, including a 2026 absence from the show while she recovered from gum graft surgery, a procedure that kept her off the air for roughly 2 weeks before she returned to her seat. She's also discussed, both in interviews and in her memoir, genuine moments of uncertainty about her career path, including specific instances where she seriously considered stepping away from live altogether rather than continuing to grind through the demands of daily television. One of the more revealing moments came in a recent interview where Ripa described a candid conversation she'd had with Oprah Winfrey, who had walked away from her own iconic talk show at almost exactly the 25-year mark. Ripa asked Winfrey directly whether that same milestone should be her own signal to leave. Winfrey told her not to, explaining that the dynamic between Ripa and Mark mattered more now than ever, especially in a media landscape saturated with negativity and an endless, exhausting news cycle. It's a small window into a much bigger truth. Even someone who appears completely effortless and at ease on camera every single morning has, behind the scenes, genuinely wrestled with the question of whether to keep going. She has also spoken in the past about experiencing real prejudice earlier in her career, and about the ongoing pressure of balancing a demanding, unforgiving live TV schedule with raising 3 children, details she has chosen to share directly in her own words rather than let tabloids speculate on her behalf. There's no shortage of behind-the-scenes color to round out the picture, either. Ripa and Mark Consuelos have 3 children together, Michael, Lola, and Joaquin, and in 2026, Joaquin made his Broadway debut in a revival of Arthur Miller's Death of a Salesman, a production that went on to become the most awarded stage show at that year's Tony Awards, with Ripa and Consuelos in attendance to support him on opening night. During the pandemic, Consuelos has said publicly that the couple spent only 19 days together over a 10-month stretch, a genuinely striking detail that reveals just how demanding both of their separate filming and shooting schedules really were, even to 2 people used to a hectic industry. On air, Ripa has built a reputation for candid, often self-deprecating storytelling, from oversharing light-hearted details about family life to admitting during one episode that she sometimes wonders if her feet were simply built for an entirely different career path than the one she chose. Over the decades, the show itself has hosted an extraordinary range of guests, from major film stars to chart-topping musicians to elite athletes, and the February 2026 anniversary episode in particular functioned as a kind of highlight reel, underscoring just how many careers and cultural moments have intersected with Ripa's desk across 25 years. As of mid-2026, Ripa, now 55 years old, continues to co-host Live with Kelly and Mark alongside her husband. After her recovery from gum graft surgery sidelined her from live broadcasts for a stretch, she returned to new live episodes right as the show entered its 39th season, a number that on its own tells you almost everything you need to know about the program's staying power. The show remains one of the most consistently syndicated daytime programs in the entire country, and Ripa remains, by any reasonable measure, at the very center of it. Far from stepping back or slowing down, she has continued adding to her resume, including a 2025 acting credit in the docuseries-style project Running with the Wolves, all while still holding down her daily hosting duties without interruption. What ultimately makes Kelly Ripa's story worth telling isn't a single dramatic moment or a scandal that defines her. It's the sheer duration and consistency of the whole thing. 35 years in front of a camera, 25 of them in the very same host chair, through 3 completely different co-hosts and countless shifts in an industry that rarely rewards loyalty or longevity. In a business defined by constant turnover, she has been an unmovable fixed point. Her legacy isn't built on controversy or a single defining achievement, it's built on staying power, adaptability, and the rare ability to make an unscripted, high-pressure job look completely effortless every single morning, for a quarter of a century straight. That is a far rarer skill in television than almost anything else the industry rewards. 25 years on live TV isn't luck, and it isn't an accident. It's the result of someone who figured out, over and over again, how to keep showing up when the easier option would always have been to simply walk away. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Kelly Ripa's career, hit like, drop a comment telling us who we should cover next, and subscribe for more documentary breakdowns of the stars who've shaped television as we know it.